Our next speaker on the agenda, she started her career as a chemist, then she became a mathematician, and then she thought, you know what, I'll get a PhD in computer science too. So she did at age 50. She's the author of multiple books. She received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the World Agility Forum, and she has been championing the Agile mindset since introducing it in 2011 on the Agile Conference, based on research from Stanford University. And quite simply, she's a legend in our industry, and it's an honor for me to leave the stage to Linda Rising. Thank you.
How many of you were alive in 2011? All of you? So on the first slide is my contact information. And as always, there are no copyrights on anything that I do, and I'm happy to share it with you. So if you have a question that you don't get a chance to ask today, because you'll think of it tomorrow morning when you wake up. So you need to send me an email and send that question or comment, or maybe a request for the slides. I'm happy to send you the PowerPoint. You can translate it to any language you want, and it's yours. You can use it. And let's connect on LinkedIn. So let's go back to 2011. And since most of you were alive then, you might have attended the big Agile Conference in Salt Lake City. And at that conference, I was the closing keynote. And I wasn't sure at all whether it would go well, because I thought this is kind of a strange topic. What is mindset anyway? And even though I had evidence based on the research of Dweck, who's a psychologist at Stanford University, I wasn't sure that it would fit. It was only my sense of a connection with agility and what is the heart? What's the real meaning of agility? And what does that mean to be agile? For me, it was a significant connection, but I wasn't sure how it would go over, or whether people would accept it, or whether they would think it was too weird. And I was amazed that not only did they see the same connection, but from that point on, everyone started talking about the agile mindset. So I guess maybe for once in my life, perhaps, I don't know, I was right. It did have some meaning or some significance for people. Now, what's happened since then is a step back, an increased understanding of what all of that research was about. And more than that, Dweck, who is a researcher at Stanford, had graduate students, others who continued her work, and they expanded the notion of mindset from being something that, well, was not just a person, an individual, a single mindset, to the idea that a group, a team, an organization, a collection of people could have a mindset. And what would that mean exactly? How would you define that? And if you could define it, is there a way of applying the idea of fixed and agile, or fixed and growth, to a group? How would you do that? And what significance would that have for the behavior of the group, the team, the organization? So first of all, let's have a little review. For those of you who might not have been there, or didn't read the talk or listen to the talk, we're talking about two different ways of looking at the world. So I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, because I don't want to know what you think right now, but I want you to think about what you think. So what do you think about the first statement? Intelligence is something that you have or you don't. You got it or you ain't got it. It's fixed. Now, you're born with it, so we say you're a smart person or you're intelligent. Or if you don't have it, we say, oh, you're not so smart or you're stupid, kind of like I do about the current president of the United States. Statement number 2. Yes, of course, we know there are differences. Some people are more intelligent than others. But I believe it's possible that no matter how intelligent you are when you're born, that if you do something, and I'm not defining what it is that you do right now, but I believe that you can get better. You could be smarter tomorrow than you are today. So those 2 different attitudes define the difference between those who have a fixed, means it can't be changed, it is what it is, fixed mindset, and those who have the growth, or I translated that to be agile, those who have the agile or growth mindset. Now, we could substitute for intelligence, we could say anything, any talent, any ability. We had a wonderful opening talk this morning about sports, and that's a perfect example because we often refer to someone who plays a sport of any kind, oh, he or she is a natural. That means they were born with some talent or ability. They have it, or they don't have it. So this dichotomy, this difference in looking at intelligence, talent, or ability is something that we all have on a spectrum. I think the message that didn't get across at the time in 2011 was nobody is completely a person who has a fixed mindset for everything. And no one holds the growth or agile mindset for everything. There's a spectrum in our attitudes, and we move along that spectrum. It depends on what we're talking about, what talent or ability, or the environment where we are at the time, that we can shift that attitude. It's not fixed. It can be moved around by talking to other people, by reading evidence to the contrary, by listening to the people who are around us. So at the time, I talked about a series of experiments that had been done, that those people who have a fixed mindset for a specific category, what we learn and why this is important is that it does affect everything. If you have the fixed mindset, that determines your behavior, how you judge other people, how you hire, fire if you're a manager, how you do your work if you're not a manager. It has wide impact. It's not just a kind of an interesting psychological phenomenon. It affects who you are. And ultimately, it affects your success, your happiness, how you are in life. So I brought forth a lot of those experiments, and I don't have time to do that today, so you'll just have to trust me that there's an enormous amount of research. And right now, of course, people who are looking at research in social science are struggling with something called the validation crisis. That things we believed at one time, someone today, and I don't remember who it was, mentioned the Myers-Briggs test. Have any of you taken the Myers-Briggs test? Ooh, I shouldn't ask, because that test is not valid. It never has been valid. It's so popular and it's used across. I've had it. I worked for an organization where everybody had to take the Myers-Briggs test, and at the time I thought, there's a reason for it. It must mean something. And there are people who are subscribers to the Myers-Briggs test who believe that it means something. It shows something significant about individuals and how you should put teams together. So let's just get this out now. It is not valid. It is not reliable. You should not be using it. Save your money and probably run off to the next buzzword and try that instead. So these are valid experiments, and they've been going on for decades. So I want you to have some confidence in the results that I'm going to discuss. And if you want to go back and read more, I think someone already asked today, but just to make me happy, how many of you still read real books? Oh, it's wonderful. Sweden. It's Sweden, after all. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you want to read more about it, Mindset is full of research. It is a sort of an academic publication, but it is very readable. Carol Dweck did an excellent job of trying to explain the research behind Mindset if you'd like to know more about it. And of course, you can probably go to YouTube or someplace and go, Linda Rising, Agile Mindset, and you can hear the very first talk where I go through some of that research that Carol Dweck has done. So one of her students, a postdoc named Mary Murphy, has been working with Carol to say, well, we have all of this wonderful research. We know a lot about the two mindsets. We know how important those mindsets are. We know what impact they have. We can measure it. We know this is true for adults. We know it's true for children. We know it's true for athletes. Different domains have been studied. But what we haven't really looked at very carefully is, could we take this idea and kind of move it up to the idea of a group? Could a group have a mindset? Could a team have a mindset? Could an organization have a mindset? And what would that mean? So, a little review. Someone who has a fixed mindset believes you have it or you don't. It's fixed. You're born with it. You're a natural golfer, or you're an intelligent person, or I'm a musician, so yeah, I know there's a difference. Some people are more musically talented than others, but I also believe that you can get better at the sport you want to play, or the musical instrument you want to play, or anything. You can be better tomorrow than you are today. You'll never be Einstein or Beethoven. That's not what we're saying. But if you work in an appropriate manner, you can improve. So on the left, fixed. Ability is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. The analogy is height. I'm not sure that's an analogy Carol Dweck uses. Height, you think, oh, I'm born, I'm going to attain a certain height as an adult, and that's it. That's not quite true. I was in Japan, I know, for the first time a long time ago, and I remember getting on the train, and a Japanese family got on the train, and it was the grandparents, the parents, and the children of a family, obviously all related, all traveling together. And I was struck by the physicality, the difference in those generations. Because the grandparents probably are my age. We survived World War II. And if you can imagine what Japan was like during World War II, that a lot of the children at that time were starving, and it did impact their height. The grandparents were little tiny people, little short, tiny people. Here are the parents, reasonably normal-sized individuals, much taller than the grandparents, even though obviously there's a genetic component here, but there are other things that affect height. And then, of course, the children are enormous. And while the parents and the grandparents are eating little bento boxes that they'd brought with them, what are the children eating? KFC or McDonald's. Oh, what have we done? What have we done? So height's really not a good example, but it's the one that's used in the analogy. Fixed. You can't change your height. So but those who have the growth mindset believe that, no, this isn't true. That ability, that's more like a muscle. If you work it, you can get better. If you work it, you can improve your ability on a musical instrument. If you work at it, you can get better at, I want to believe, almost anything. I'm a believer in growth. The goal, if you have the fixed mindset, is run something like this. Well, I believe that you have it or you don't. And that if it's true, then I want to make sure that everybody thinks I have it. So that means I want to look good. I want to look like I know what I'm doing. I want to show that I'm proficient at the game I'm playing or the instrument I'm playing. That is my goal. Because if I look good, then everyone will say, she has it. She's a natural. Well, the goal, on the other hand, for those who have the growth mindset is, well, I know I'm pretty good, but I could be better. So my goal is not necessarily so wrapped up in how I am now, but it is to be better the next time I do this. This is the first time I've given this particular talk. I know it's not going to go well, but we'll see if I can learn in the process, and maybe next time, so sorry, you're the guinea pigs for this talk. We'll see how it goes. The challenge for those with a fixed mindset, they don't like it. Those with the mindset that's fixed believe if something looks hard, if something is difficult, I might not look like I have it. So I better go away from that challenge. I better avoid it because I want to continue to look good. Those with the growth mindset, on the other hand, love it. Something a little challenging, a chance to learn, something that might be a little difficult right now, but I will try, I will do my best, I will learn from that experience, and I will get better. So in the original talk, I spent a little time here talking about why there aren't more women in science and technology, and it's because of that. So those of you who either have worked with women in science and technology or who are women in science technology might begin to identify with some of these feelings like, oh, this is too hard. I might not look good. I might just go somewhere else. This is too difficult for me. So there are severe differences. But what we know is all of us have all of these. There are probably areas that you've been able to think of right now where, I'm pretty growth-oriented over here, but when you talk about things over here, I don't know, maybe I do have that fixed mindset. And that's the way we all are. We have little areas where we focus our attention and say, yeah, I believe that I could get better, but I don't know, I just don't have it for another area. We're all like that. We're all like that. So the good news is it's not fixed. You can change. If you are unhappy with some of the areas in your life where you tend to have more of a fixed mindset, you can kind of move it over. And why would you want to do that? Because we know from experimental evidence that people who have the fixed mindset apply that to everyone. They begin to judge other people. Oh, well, it's obvious she doesn't have any talent. It's obvious that he has no ability to do whatever. If you hear a little voice in your head that begins to label people or judge people about who they are and what they can do, then that's your little fixed mindset, and that will determine how you treat those people. If you label them as unable to do something, and worse yet, your belief will bring that out, especially if you have power over them, if you're a manager. If you're a manager with a fixed mindset who believes that some people in your organization are not capable, are not intelligent, then that's how you will treat them, and that's the behavior you will see. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've got to do everything we can to get rid of that. So what we know now about organizations is, yes, they can exhibit the same set of traits. That an organization that has the fixed mindset says, yeah, we want to hire the smart people. And not only that, we can tell. We can tell who the smart people are. Maybe it's a combination of, well, what school did you go to? Are you a Harvard, MIT, Stanford graduate? Were you in the top 10% of your class? Maybe we'll give you an IQ test. We will have a way of determining whether you're the best of the best. So organizations that have the fixed mindset believe we want to hire those people who have it. And we can tell, we can identify those people. And so if they come to work for us, then they'd better show us. So if you're going to apply for a job at an organization with a fixed mindset, you better show them that you have it. Whereas organizations that are interested in growth say, this is what we care about. We want people who will learn. We want people who will be better. That's why the unfortunate thing in hiring is that we make a list. And we say, we want somebody that knows that has this skill, that can show us they can do this. Well, that is the wrong approach. What we should have is an ad that says, we want enthusiastic people who will learn. Because that's what you want. We've heard a lot today about what the future brings. And by the way, you know the research on people who predict the future? Well, anyway. We want people who grow. Because we don't know tomorrow what's going to happen. Right now, we think we need X, Y, and Z, but tomorrow we might need A, B, and C. And so the people that we hire should be able to sort of tap dance and adopt and be agile. Very different approaches to hiring, promoting, growing the people in their organization. So it does impact how you hire people, whether they work together or not. Organizations encourage or discourage a lot of behavior by their mindsets. The evidence is clear. It does make a difference. So let's talk about rats. You've already heard that I started my professional life as a chemist. Yes, actually I was a biochemist. And one of the first jobs I had was to go up to the 4th floor and bring down the rats for the day. It was a horrible job. And eventually I quit. I just couldn't do it. You have to put your hand in the big cage and pick out the rat for the day. And of course, that's always going to be the friendly rat who's going to come up and sniff your hand, and you say, "Sorry, buddy." And then you go down to the lab and you say, "Okay, well, here are the rats for the day," and you're carrying a little cage. So when I first read about this experiment, it took me back, oh my goodness, because it was, for me, 1963. I don't even need to ask you to raise your hands, because I'm sure there's nobody in this room who was even alive in 1963. Okay. So in 1963, the researchers did an interesting thing. They came into the lab and they said, "Here are the rats for the day." And then they lied. They told the graduate students who were working there, said, "We've got some special rats. These rats are so intelligent. They've been specially bred. We're trying to get rats to run through a maze. Well, these rats are so intelligent that they will be able to learn to run the maze twice as fast, maybe 3 times as fast as the regular, old, normal rats." Wow. Well, we don't have enough of the very smart rats for everybody. So why don't we'll divide the group in half, and okay, you will get the very special rats, and you'll get the normal rats, and then we'll do our experiments today trying to get the rats to run a maze. Now, the researcher who was in charge thought, this is really far out. I don't believe it's really going to show anything, but he had an idea. He thought he would try it. Why not? And in the experiment, would you think it would make a difference? Because he lied. There was no difference between the two populations of rats. The rats were not more intelligent. They hadn't been bred especially to learn all of the rat tricks that are important for rat survival. They were just like the normal rats. But astoundingly, significant difference. The rats, when the research assistants were told, "Oh, these rats are so smart," they did better. Statistically significant. That's what you have to say in social science. Statistically significantly better. So the researcher thought, how could this be? They were the same rats, essentially just randomly assigned to 2 different populations, randomly assigned to 2 different sets of graduate students, and said, okay, now let's spend the day trying to teach these rats how to run the maze. And they were different. Why? He didn't know. And we still don't know. We still don't know. When the same population was randomly divided in half and just told, these rats are smarter, they became smarter. So the question immediately arises is, okay, that was rats. Would that work for people? What do you think? That was the next experiment that he did in 1963. He did it with children. He went into a school and he told the teachers, I'm going to give these children an IQ test. And we're going to try to identify, well, are there special children here, very intelligent children? So he gave the test. He did give the test, but they were just a random population. There was no significant difference among the IQs of these children. But he told the teachers a lie. He said, some of these children have done exceptionally well on this IQ test. I think they're really going to show promise over the course of the year. So I want to come back at the end of the year and I want to measure to see if there's significant improvement. For the other children, the teachers were told, well, they all took the IQ test. Well, these children, they were okay. But nothing special, you understand. So he did the same thing that he had done with the rats, expecting maybe it would make a difference. And of course, I wouldn't be standing up here telling you this story, but it did. Those teachers who had been told that certain students were exceptional, even though they were not. At the end of the year, when Rosenthal came back and measured them all again with an IQ test, those students had improved statistically significantly. Wow. What does that mean? What does that mean for education? What does that mean for the way we run our organizations? What does that mean for the way we treat each other? By being told these were special, they became special. So what we know is organizations have a mindset. Yes, and the way they treat people makes a difference. Just like the rats and the children, you can measure it. In those organizations where you're treated as though you can grow, as though you do have it, as though you're somebody who can become a major contributor. You will become a major contributor. We know that now. The evidence is clear. Do you see why there is this impetus from all of Carol Dweck's researchers to say, there's a significant impact that we can have. Organizations who have a certain mindset, the people who work for them are better because the organizations believe that they are. Well, we see what things happen when they go wrong. Maybe you're not old enough to remember what happened to Enron. Anybody? I think this is Ken Lay's mugshot. Before they hauled him off to prison. No. Enron was famous for hiring the best. That's what they said, hire the best. And then they had a process that was called rank and yank. People were constantly being evaluated. Who's better than whom? And we're going to measure it. And only the best people get promoted. Only the best people, in fact, we're not even going to keep anybody who's the best. So the logic of that totally escapes me. If you hire somebody who's supposed to be the best, how is it that after you've hired them and now you start ranking them, that now they're not the best? Because the lower third or quartile, somewhere along in there, they said, well, you're not the best, obviously, so we will fire you. So if you knew your job was on the line and that you were going to be constantly ranked or compared by measuring something that had to do with what you produced, what would you do? Would you try to make yourself look good? Didn't somebody ask today, have you ever cheated on a test? I won't ask you to stand. Don't stand. Yeah. But we all probably would. We would all look good, whatever it took. In fact, that's what happened to Enron. Everybody was so anxious to look good, they found creative ways of making sure they looked good. And sometimes that meant making somebody else look bad. Sometimes that meant lying, cheating, stealing, so they could hang on to their jobs. And ultimately, of course, it destroyed Enron. Ken Lay, I think, still doesn't see that he did anything wrong. I didn't fly over here on Southwest. It doesn't quite get over this far, but it is my favorite airline. And it's been the case study at Harvard of so many studies that it's one of the few companies where you could say, Yeah, it's pretty obvious. That is a growth mindset company, that they talk about spirit, they talk about learning, they talk about growth. Hire for attitude, not because you have it or you don't. Compared to, so right after Elon took over Twitter, he sent out an email that said something like, going forward to build a breakthrough Twitter 2.0 and succeed in an increasingly competitive world, we will need to be extremely hard. This will mean working long hours at high intensity. Only exceptional performance will constitute a passing grade. Fixed. So I'm not going to ask, I'm assuming if you're a manager, or you have a manager, or you can spell manager, you should read this paper. Now, in fact, if you want any of this research, and if it is a paper and I can send it to you, I'm happy to do it. I'm an HBR subscriber, and just don't tell Harvard that I'm sending you this paper. But anyway, look, I'm looking at the date on this. This is 1988, but it is classic. And in the title, there's the word Pygmalion. And it's about research that was done in organizations with managers. And in it is evidence that a manager who has a growth mindset, this is long before Carol Dweck did hers. So they didn't really call it a growth mindset, but it's the mindset that believes that the people who are in your team or your organization are okay, and that they can get better, and that they can learn and they can grow, that does happen. And in organizations where that is not the case, where the manager simply feels, okay, it's my job to label, like rank and yank. It's my job to label. These people have it and these people don't, and we'll fire the ones who don't have it and we'll promote the others. That's what a manager does. In those organizations, you don't see the kind of growth and the kind of improvement that you do in an organization where the managers believe that you can get better. What happens in those organizations is they do get better. So it's the beginning of all the evidence for what we could call a group or an organizational mindset. You must read the paper. Please, I'll be happy to send it to you. We know leaders have a mindset or not. Sometimes it's pretty evident in the way they talk about their employees. I like seeing Scott Forstall said, we want to make mistakes, we struggle, but we want to do something that's important. David Kelly, we like our people to fail. This is kind of an agile thing, isn't it? Fail early, fail often. I hate to quote Jeff Bezos anymore, but anyway, he says, it's like planting seeds. We're planting seeds, we're growing, we're going to get better. The research also shows, since this is a problem that has been classic in software development, we are horrible estimators and we don't really study it. We don't get any better. There's evidence now that people who have a growth mindset, for some reason, they're better at estimating. And I love this quote from Lawrence Krauss, who said, it starts in school. The kinds of problems that we ask people to solve, the things that we ask them to do for tasks and challenges, have answers. So that's absolutely wrong. What we should be giving our children, our students, the people who work with us, is the idea that there are lots of things that we're going to be asked to do where there is no answer. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. We know teams have a mindset. Sorry. We could talk about marriage, but I'm running out of time. More women. The evidence is clear. I'll be happy to send you this paper as well. The more women on a team, the more women in an organization, the more women on a board. There's no end to it. the more the merrier. So the good news is you can get better. I know you can. I believe you can. The idea of mindset is itself not fixed. You can move in that direction. And sometimes it doesn't take much. That it makes a difference. It makes a difference if you improve your mindset. It makes a difference to your organization, to your team. So I'm going to give you some suggestions, and I'm going to skip that slide. You're going to ask for these slides so you don't have to take a picture of this or anything. But when you're talking to people, it does make a difference. To your children, don't ever say, "Oh, good job." Was that hard? Did you not like that? Don't ever say, "Good job." Say, "I really like the way that you've been practicing your piano. I can hear that you're getting better on that really challenging piece that you've been working on. Oh, I see you've been doing your homework lately, and your grades are getting better in math. I'm really happy that you're now finding a way to get better in some of your hard subjects." Vacuous praise does not help anyone. Praise for effort and specific as possible. I like that you're practicing tennis or golf or whatever the sport is. I like that you're doing whatever it takes to get better for your children, for other adults. If you know someone who says, "I guess I don't have it," is it a spouse? Is it a colleague? And we say, and this is exactly the wrong thing to say, like saying "good job" to children, is to say, "Oh no, you're smart, talented, capable." We argue with them. And the response should be, "You know, I remember last year when you were struggling with this problem that your boss gave you and you got discouraged, but you remember what you did? You spent time talking to your mentor who helped you decide on some new strategies that enabled you to do an excellent job. You improved. Things got better. Do you remember that? Remember a time when you had problems, when you had challenges, and you were able to do something, not because you're so smart, but because you worked hard, because you were creative, because you gave that extra effort, because you figured out strategies, things that worked for you." And then the worst, of course, is what do you say to yourself? Because often it's, "I guess I just don't have it. I guess I can't do this. I guess maybe I should try to find another job or something that's easier. Obviously, this is too much for me." Especially as you get older. So I can talk about that if you want. Instead, you should say, "This is an opportunity for me. This is a challenge for me." Don't let failure be a definition of your identity. Failure, for someone with a growth mindset, failure means a chance, an opportunity for you to get better. So I'm going to go to the end because I see you're flashing that 5-minute sign at me. So I'm going to leave time for questions if there are any questions. Do I have time for questions? Okay. We can take 2 questions, he says. Anybody? Oh. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. So I sometimes, we have people around us of different mindsets, and
Yes.
sometimes we might feel measured or put in a box.
Yep.
And that kind of hurts. We don't like it and create some friction. But we still have to, work together.
Yep.
Do you have any advice on how to navigate those situations?
So are you asking for help in interacting with a colleague or?
It could be anyone, but basically this whole situation, which
Okay.
you kind of,
So usually my response is if you're having an interaction with anybody, a child, a parent, well, I don't have any parents anymore, but a spouse, a colleague, is to treat them the way you want to be treated. So I used to sit next to a fellow who disagreed with me on almost everything. And finally, I realized that's the advice I give everybody. I should try it myself. So I stopped by his cubicle one day and I said, you know, Renee, I really like, and it has to be sincere, I really like that, and I gave him a compliment for something that I really did like. And that's all it took. After that, he changed toward me. So I thought, I don't know what was going on for him before. We never know, even if it's someone we're really close to. We never know what they're thinking. We never know why they do something or say something. And what it takes from you is leadership and the courage to say, I'm going to tell you the way I'd like you to be toward me, to be open, accepting, complimenting. Benjamin Franklin had a great example of that, where there was someone in the legislature that he couldn't get along with, and he said, I want to borrow a book from you. At the time, that was significant. People didn't have books, libraries, there was no place to go. And by doing that, he was saying to the man, I regard you as a friend. I know that you will give me this book. He said, after that, this other legislature and I were friends until we died. So you might be surprised. It might not take too much. It might take just a little bit of courage on your part to say, I'm reaching out to you and showing you the way I'd like you to treat me. Can you do that? You're nodding, but I don't know. Are you? You'll try it. It'll be an experiment. Yeah? Okay, thanks for that. Other questions? Yeah. Oh, we're waiting for that.
Okay. One thing I've been thinking about many years since I read this book, which I read many times, I consider myself, I think I had a fixed mindset, but when reading it,
we're all a mixture.
I was kind of moving toward a growth mindset, and I really, really think that you can accomplish almost anything as long as you put your mind to it. But the thing I'm wondering about, it's like we have people with fixed mindsets and people with growth mindset, and the fixed ones, they are correct in their belief that they are fixed because they are fixed, and the growth ones are correct because they grow as they think they will do. Yep. But how can you get from one side to the other, so to speak?
Sometimes, and in fact, what Carol Dweck has done with her graduate students is if they had worked with people, and even children, and they just explain it. They say there are these two mindsets, and here are the characteristics, and here's what that means for your behavior. And in fact, if you did read the book, you probably heard that one story about they were working with disadvantaged children who don't do well in school. And they just explained to them that there are people who believe that your intelligence is fixed, there's nothing you can, and there are other people who, but it's just a belief. And that does impact your behavior. And to have one small child say to her, you mean I don't have to be stupid? That if you're always told that you don't have it, if you're always told you'll never amount to anything, you'll never do well, that after a while, then you think, that's it, I don't have it, I'll never do well, I'll never be able to play golf or a musical instrument or do well in school or what. If that's what you've heard from indirectly your parents and your teacher, oh, you don't have it. You mean I don't have to be stupid? What a horrible thing to do to a child. But that's happened. We could take a poll in this room. Why do you have that fixed mindset? Probably because that's what they've been told their whole lives. And sometimes it also works the other way. Oh, you're so smart. But then they stop, and I don't believe it. because I had this challenge, or I failed, or I made mistakes, so obviously I don't have it. Obviously I'm not so smart. And then that's what they begin to believe. So.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.